Alright. What's going on, guys? About to start in a few minutes. Hey. Happy Memorial Day weekend, my friends, my Romans, my countrymen. It's good to see all you guys. What's up? What's going on, guys? What's going on? Hey, Lisa. Thanks for tuning in. It's a little strange because I'm streaming on all the platforms. So, like, Facebook is over here, Instagram is right there. I'm like looking at everything all on one screen, but it is pretty cool. I appreciate you guys tuning in. My little brother Giancarlos, ya tú sabes. All right, so let's see here. What should we be discussing today? I'm going to go over some things. I'm going to go over some really important things that everybody should know, but a lot of people don't know. So I'm just loading up this information here now. And then once I load it up, we can go ahead and start going over it. I'm going to drop some gems on you guys so that, you guys have that knowledge, that power to what I like to call learn, drop the L, and earn. And then after that, oh wait, probably I don't think, I was about to say I don't have my audio on, but I do have my audio on. I was worried there for a second. Let's just make sure. Alright, good, yeah, the audio's on. So I'm going to my website here, and I'll share my screen with you guys just so you can see. Hello, Ajay Jamel. Thanks for tuning in. Alright, so this is my website here. Once it finishes loading, alright, on your end you can see it. So this just shows some basic information here, but what I really want to get into is stuff that people don't really know about. It's this right here. So there is a thing that's called a FICO score, which a lot of people are familiar with. Another thing that a lot of people aren't so familiar with is what's called a Vantage Score. But they see it every day. I mean, most people with Credit Karma or any of those particular applications. Hola. Hola, cielo. Anybody with one of those particular applications like Credit Karma are going to be able to see their Vantage score on the daily, because what Credit Karma is doing is it's showing you what's called your Vantage 3.0 score. So it's very similar to your FICO score, but the difference is that it's weighed out a little bit differently. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna zoom in a little bit for you guys just so that you can really see, these differences here. All right, so now the FICO score is made up out of five key components, 5 factors. That's payment history, credit age, inquiries, utilization, and credit types. So the way I like to see it is, payment history is about 35% of your score. And, I like to break things down because, some people are just like, what do you mean payment history is 35% of your score? How do you calculate somebody's payment history? Well, the way you'd calculate somebody's payment history is by how many times they've paid things on time, essentially. If they pay things late, which they look at, as far as 30, 60, 90, 120, 180, or over 180 days, then you would go ahead and be able to, determine somebody's payment history is really what it is. So banks, for instance, look at this as, you promising to pay something on time. So if you go and you borrow your friend's shirt or sneakers or whatever it might be, and they're like, okay, just make sure to give it to me before the end of the month, I really need it, and you end up keeping it and you don't remember to give it back to them, Do you really think your friend's gonna let you borrow that shirt or those sneakers or whatever it might have been again? Probably not, right? And the reason for that is because you lose trust in them. Same thing with banks. They're going ahead, they're extending credit to you, a particular line of credit. And that kind of brings me into the next biggest part of the pie, I guess you could call it, which is utilization. That's 30% of your FICO score. Um, Now, think of it this way, whereas I say, hey, listen, John, I'm going to let you borrow $1,000 per month. But then what you do is you end up going ahead and borrowing that $1,000 in full every month. Now, somebody might think, oh, I mean, that's not a big deal as long as I pay it back, right? Well, yes and no, because you have to think of it this way. If I say, listen, John, I'm going to let you borrow up to $1,000 each month. This is the most that I could possibly let you borrow because, my money's tight right now. I'm letting a lot of people borrow money. And, I'm only doing this for you because you've been, like my friend for a really long time. And that's the most I can possibly let you borrow. Well, if you go and you borrow the $1,000 each month in full, I mean, think about it. I'm gonna be like, oh, damn, John's really borrowing all this money. Like I told him I'd let him borrow up to 1,000, but I wasn't serious. Like I just said that because he's my friend. Um, Now, if you were to go ahead and do something different, where I went ahead and let you borrow up to 1,000, but you borrow maybe $50 and you pay it back each month, then I'd be like, damn, John, that guy's really responsible. He's a good friend, always pays me back on time. Um, he borrowed $50 last month and he paid it back right away. You know what, John? Next month, I'm gonna let you borrow up to $2,000. That's exactly how banks work. um, the next part is credit age. So you really got to think about it this way as far as like, you know, all right, so I've known you for 10 years. Jimmy there has known you for 5. And Tommy just met you. Jimmy, Tommy, and I, we owe you with, a lot more money, I guess you could say, or friendship, whatever you want to call it. Tommy, on the other hand, he just met you. So he's not going to give you an arm and a leg unless he first comes talk to me and realizes that I've been friends with you for 10 plus years. He might go to Jimmy too, but then he's just going to be like, okay, well, I mean, Jimmy's only known him for 5, Carlos has known him for 10. All right, well, I mean, if I could ask both of them, and that's why they take the average age of your cards and figure out, how much, for instance, take your friends, for instance, and divide them up into whatever amount, however many you have, and that's how they figure out the age, the average age of your card. Um, Probably not the best example, but that's the way I think about it. Inquiries, that's huge because a lot of people think that inquiries don't do anything. Yes, when you do an inquiry on your credit report, you might lose a point, maybe 2. But there are some people that go and they literally apply with every company and their name and their mom and whatever it is. But you have to think about it this way. An inquiry is like, remember that example that I used earlier about you coming and borrowing money from me? Well, that's like going and, asking your mom if you can borrow $500, asking Jimmy if you can borrow $500, asking Tommy if you can borrow $500, and then coming and asking me if you could borrow $500. And then what I do is I'm like, well, take a moment, let me think about it, and then, us banks, we all talk to each other. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to your mom, and your mom's gonna tell me, yeah, he just asked me to borrow $500, and I'm gonna be like, oh, he just asked me to borrow $500 too. And then Jimmy and Tommy are both gonna say the same damn thing, and I mean, what would be on your mind? Either this person is A, desperate for money, and is broke and probably not going to pay me back, or B, this person's up to something and they're trying to scam me. So banks think the same way. They're not going to lend to somebody who's out there looking desperate, asking for a lot of money. The next thing you would want to consider is credit types. So credit types is really just how responsible you can be, or how much you can juggle, basically. So what the way banks, I guess you could express this in an easy to know way is, there's loans obviously, and then there's credit cards, and there's different types of credit. The way I like to think about it is, okay, well, this person just wants to see how much I can juggle or how much I can keep on my plate. Like if you go ahead and you have a loan that has a particular type of payment, which is in installments. It's a set amount for a particular amount of time. Whereas a revolving line of credit, a credit card, is a variable amount. It's something that can change, and it really just depends on how much you're spending. So, the more you spend, the higher your payments will be. Typically on a credit card, your minimum payment will be 1% of whatever the balance is, plus any fees and interest. Now, if you have a particular credit card that is 0% for, say, 12 months, then your minimum payment on $1,000 line of credit that you max out, for instance, which isn't a good idea because you have to, remember that utilization is very important. And if you're over 30%, so you do want to keep, let's say, for instance, on $1,000 credit line, a balance that is lower than 30%. If you're between 10 and 20, and 20 and 10, even better. And if you're in between 10 and 0, then by all means, that's what you need to do. A lot of people think that they need to keep a balance on their credit card in order to build good credit. You don't need to do that. Rich people do not keep balances on their credit card. Let me tell you, when I worked in the financial industry, I spoke to millionaires. Shit, I even spoke to billionaires. And they don't spend money like that. They will go ahead and use their 0% interest cards for the amount of time that they have 0% on. But then once they're done with those 0% offers, they pay them off. And that is what is different between the people who are wealthy and the people that struggle and get into this circle of debt, because that's what it is. You get into this circle and it just goes round and round like a guinea pig in one of those little circle wheel things that they have. So I don't mean to get off track there, but essentially those are the things that make up your FICO score, and they're very important because you want to do well and you want to have good credit, because like I like to say, cash is king, but credit is queen. And like anybody who enjoys playing chess would know, you can make a lot more moves on the chessboard with the queen than you can the king. But you do have to protect the king, because if you allow the king to be destroyed or killed or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, then you lose the game. So that's the rules of chess. And there's pawns in the game as well. There's knights, there's other things. And if you get one of those pawns to the other side of the board, you can potentially get your queen back even if you lose her. So things to keep in mind. There's tricks to the game. The Vantage Score, which is what you do see on your Credit Karma report each time, is definitely something that that you can go ahead and look at. It is sometimes variable, so it does look a little bit different than your FICO score. So some people might actually have like sometimes a higher FICO or a lower FICO, or a higher Vantage and a lower Vantage, and that is simply because of the percentages here. So payment history is 40% on your Vantage score, whereas it's only 35% on your FICO score. So think about it this way. If you went ahead and had a better payment history than somebody else, then it's going to look better on your Vantage score than it does on your FICO score. It's a whole 5 points higher. So that makes a difference, believe it or not. If you've never had a missed payment, your Vantage score might look better than your FICO score. It's just the truth of the world. But if you're utilizing, a higher portion of your debt, your FICO score might look worse than your Vantage score because it's only 20% as opposed to 30% on your FICO. So this is some of the stuff that like a lot of people don't realize, and I like to educate as much as possible. So there's one piece to the pie, no pun intended. If you look at this other pie here that's on the screen, actually you won't be able to see that because my face is covering it. But let me zoom in here a little bit just so you can see. All right, so this other pie here shows somebody's phone with their hand, and it shows particular numbers. It shows the big three, which is Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And if you notice, there's a little bit of a difference here. There's 37 positive accounts, I guess you could call them, on Equifax, 29 positive accounts on Experian, and 37 positive accounts on TransUnion. Does anybody know why that might be? Carb, do you know? Chem, method? Give you guys a little bit to maybe try to figure it out. Chris, maybe you know why these particular numbers might be different? 37, 29, 37, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Come on, you gotta know. One of you gotta know. I have faith. All right, maybe none of you know. Or maybe I'm just not seeing your answers in the chat box, or it's got a delay or something. Maybe you know, Thomas, why Equifax might have 37, Experian might have 29, and TransUnion might have 37. All right. Nope, it doesn't look like anybody knows. Well, I'm going to tell you why. It's because if you look over here to what I originally had on the left-hand side, you see that right there? 80% of people have errors in their credit report, and that ultimately affects their score. So think of it this way, and it's crazy to imagine, but there are times where simple human error can go ahead and give you the wrong name. It can give you the wrong date of birth. It can give you the wrong address. Various things. And in going ahead and getting these particular things on your credit report that are wrong, it does negatively impact you in many cases. Sometimes there's accounts that are duplicated, collections, things that you paid off years ago. Now there's a thing called statute of limitations, which is, how long things can go ahead and remain on your report. And for most things, it's about 7 years. But you'll be surprised how many people have things that are over 7 years old on their report that should have been removed. And it's simply because those three big credit bureaus don't really benefit from you having a good credit score. Their clients are the banks. And if the banks are making money, which means, they have to make money by charging you more interest, and they can only really charge you more interest if they have you with worse scores, well then, the only way to do so is by, ensuring that somehow, some way, the errors in your report are not removed. Now, you as a consumer are protected by something that's called the Fair Credit Reporting Act, uh, which allows you to dispute things that may be incorrect on your credit report. And that is where your power lies. Because if, like I like to say, if you can't prove it, then you have to remove it. Um, so, those were just a few things that I wanted to express and talk about as far as credit is concerned. There are a lot more things that we could discuss and go over. Um, but if we were to do that, we would probably be here all day. And it's a Sunday night. Um, so, I respect all of your time. I appreciate you all for tuning in. If you do have any questions, feel free to message me, send me a DM. And, I hope you guys continue to watch. Check me out on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things. So, I'm just going to load up this screen here so you guys can see. All right. Alrighty, so as you can see there, I'm going to be streaming most Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm usually going to try to do these things from, about 8:15 is when I'd really get started. I'll give 15 minutes for people to really start showing up. And getting situated, I guess you could say. In the meantime, in those initial 15 minutes, I'd expect a bunch of people to start typing comments as far as questions, things that they'd want me to answer, anything regarding taxes, finances, credit, you name it. I want to go over as much things as I can to get people to generational wealth. And the only way I can really do that is if people are participating. So I'm going to go over things regardless. But, with questions and things of that nature, I can go over specific things that people can enjoy and people can learn from. On top of that, I'm going to be going ahead and, giving tips. I'll be doing giveaways. People will get my services for free. So there's definitely something I want to continue on Sundays so that, people can not only get educated, but they could also get a lot of help. I'm in a position, thankfully, to help a lot of people, especially during these troubling times, and I intend to do so. So, all right, guys, I do hope that you enjoyed this particular live stream of Live with Mr. Then. I'm going to go ahead and be signing off here now, but before I do, I'll leave you with some nice exit music.